It's almost like, and I hope you're sitting down for this, it was never actually about lowering costs, and Trump just says whatever he needs to say to manipulate people into voting for him with zero intention of following through.
Donald Trump's new press secretary was asked about any efforts by the Trump administration to lower prices. As you can imagine, she gave a non-answer answer. We're going to take a look at clips from this press conference with Donald Trump's press secretary. We're also going to take a look at clips from Brian Tyler Cohen's show. He broke all of this down. I have some opinions on this as well. Let's check this out together.
Now that the President Trump's policies are starting to take shape, how long will it take to cycle through and get some of the actual prices that Americans are paying to come down?
Prices at the store and at the grocery pump?
All of the above.
Across the board, sure. Well, the president is doing everything he can, obviously, to reduce the cost of living crisis in this country as quickly as possible. That's why he signed a litany of executive orders across the board. In the first couple of weeks here, he declared a national energy emergency. He committed to cutting 10 regulations for every new one on the book. As you know, working for a Fox Business-related outlet, deregulation and energy independence are huge drivers of reducing inflation in this country. And I think Americans can be assured by the results President Trump had in his first term, when, again, inflation was 1.4% when he left office.
Is it months or is it a year? And will Americans have the patience to wait for it?
I don't have a timeline, but the president is doing everything that he possibly can to reduce cost of living for Americans at home.
Now, I'm old enough to remember sitting through an entire campaign cycle where all we heard about was high costs, high prices. And if Donald Trump became president, he would finally do what the Democrats failed to do by bringing costs down. The cost of food and rent and housing and eggs. And don't take my word for it, take his.
I went on groceries. It's a very simple word, groceries. Like almost, who uses the word? I started using the word.
This is one of the things that cracks me up with Trump, is he always acts like he discovered a word or invented it. Who uses the word groceries? Everybody? I mean, any normal person says groceries. It's a very common word that most people in the United States use. This has just always cracked me up with Trump. He's such a strange person.
Groceries, when you buy apples, when you buy bacon, when you buy eggs, they would double and triple the price over a short period of time. And I won an election based on that. We're going to bring those prices way down.
So clearly, there's no doubting the potency of this issue. Trump himself credited it with winning him the election. And yet, now that he's actually in office, now that he has the ability to actually wield power, wherein he's had all the time in the world to try and shut down full agencies, pardon 1,600 criminals, try and impose unconstitutional citizenship bans, launch a trade war, threaten regular war against at least 4 separate countries, he's had time to do all of that. And yet conspicuously absent amid all of this activity is a single solitary step to actually lower costs for Americans. It's almost like, and I hope you're sitting down for this, it was never actually about lowering costs, and Trump just says whatever he needs to say to manipulate people into voting for him with zero intention of following through. Now, Leavitt promised here that the president was doing everything he could as quickly as possible. She explains that he declared a national energy emergency, which might actually carry some weight if we had a national energy emergency that was somehow leading to increased costs. In reality, the U.S. has never produced more energy than it does right now in the aftermath of the Biden administration. This chart is a testament to exactly that, with every energy source growing except coal, which, incidentally, Trump had promised to save during his first term. So I guess broken promises are a recurring theme here. And that's to say nothing of the staggering 300,000 clean energy jobs that were created during the Biden era. So here's the strategy as far as Trump is concerned. He wants to pretend that there's some energy crisis where there is none, also that he can do a few pretend things and sign some executive orders, and then in a few months, he'll point to the already thriving energy sector and take credit for all of it. He's not actually interested in fixing anything, he's just interested in taking credit for what's already working. Leavitt also says that Trump's committed to cutting 10 regulations for every new one on the book. Okay, that's great, and if anybody could tell me how that's going to lower costs for American families, I'm all ears. Cutting regulations doesn't automatically mean that costs are going to go down. It doesn't actually mean anything. It's just some right-wing buzzwords. We're not somehow surging the price of eggs because there are statutory regulations on the books. She's just saying words to fill space because she knows that this White House has no interest in doing anything to actually help anyone who is not in the same tax bracket as Trump or Elon. But
I agree with Brian Tyler Cohen about this. In the first Trump administration, it was 2 regulations that they were going to cut for everyone. Now they've ramped it up to 10 regulations for everyone. And, you know, regulations that are not good, that don't work properly, yeah, take a look at those and remove them. But to just arbitrarily remove regulations is insane. Elon Musk said the other night that he thinks that there should be no regulations at all. Remove all the regulations, and then if we decide that any of them are good, we can bring them back. Well, we know that in the United States that environmental protection laws that have been put in place have made tremendous improvements. Our air and our water is much cleaner than it was 60, 70, 80 years ago. So regulations can protect us. Of course, the Trump administration doesn't care about that. They just want to do whatever is going to help big business. And as Brian Tyler Cohen says here, they're not interested in lowering prices. That was just a thing that was said so Donald Trump could get reelected. Again, he knows nothing. He's not had to deal with the cost of eggs in his lifetime. He doesn't care anything about that.
Here's the most ironic part of all of this.
I think Americans can be assured by the results President Trump had in his first term, when, again, inflation was 1.4% when he left office.
That Americans can be assured by the results Trump had in his first term. Yes, inflation was low, so was growth, at an anemic negative 2.2%. So were jobs numbers, at a historically bad net loss of 3 million jobs. So was the unemployment rate, at a dismal 6.4%. So were manufacturing jobs, with a net loss of almost 200,000. So I understand why this administration wants to memory hole the reality of Trump's first term while telling themselves that he was some brilliant president. But in fact, he presided over the biggest economic failure in modern American history. You'd have to go back to the Great Depression to find a worse steward of the economy than Donald Trump. So if his first term is the bar for success, then that doesn't exactly inspire confidence. In fact, it's not just Trump in this White House who are involved in this ruse. Here's Mike Johnson also doing his part to fool the rubes who trusted them.
But is there bottom line one piece of legislation targeted at bringing down grocery prices for the American consumer?
It's a complex collection of legislation because we got to unwind and fix everything. I was on the campaign trail all last year, traveling around the country. I logged enough miles to circle the globe 5.5 times. We kept the House majority, we won the Senate majority for the Republican Party, and we won the White House. And we told the American people that we would do well by them. And what I said on the campaign trail was, to summarize, we could be the most consequential Congress of the modern era because we have to fix everything. I mean, everything's a mess. So it's not just one switch that you flip back on. It's a number of them, and we have to make it all work together, and we will.
As a reminder, the question was, is there one piece of legislation targeted at bringing down grocery prices? And that long, winding answer by Mike Johnson was a really, really long way of saying no. Why? Because again, it was never about grocery prices. Republicans do not care about bringing your costs down. They never cared about bringing your costs down. It was theater. It was make-believe to get you to think that they would care about you. And it lasted only until the moment they took power. And now, suddenly, the concern over the cost of your eggs vanishes like a fart in a hurricane. The reality is that if you want to know what Republicans' actual priorities are, you don't have to guess. Just watch what they do. Watch what legislation they pass. They're not going to pass any bills restricting price gouging by food retailers because that's not their priority. And while everybody blamed Joe Biden and the Democrats for high food prices that happened as the result of inflation and price gouging, it was actually Kamala and Tim Walz's plan to take on those exact people.
As president, I will go after the bad actors, and I will work to pass the first ever federal ban on price gouging on food.
She knows that folks are being squeezed on grocery prices, but let's all be very clear here, folks. You know this in Michigan. I'm a Minnesota guy. Those of us who've been on farms, farmers are getting $3.90 for a bushel of corn and barely $10 for soybeans. They're not getting rich. Somebody in the middle's taking a cut for not growing the corn, not processing the corn, not doing anything.
And while there's no use in relitigating the past, the reality is that only one candidate in the 2024 race actually took on price gougers. The other is a billionaire known for refusing to pay contractors. When the billionaire wins, are we really supposed to be surprised that the concerns of the middle class aren't taken into account? And frankly, we knew to expect that Donald Trump and Republicans would drop the whole "we're going to help the middle class" shtick the moment they took power because they've pulled this whole charade before.
And Brian Tyler Cohen is right about this. This is a really great point. And that was as he's saying, not to litigate this election over again, but that was a real failing of the Harris campaign. They came out with this price gouging plan. It was popular, anti-price gouging plan. It was popular. And then all of the, the media and the usual suspects started coming after them about this. Big business didn't like that. And it became even more popular, but they backed off on it. They should have just been hammering that. That was a really smart proposal, and more economic populism like that, could have, maybe they would have not won no matter what, but that could have at least helped. And one point that I wanted to make with the beginning of this video, with this new press secretary, Donald Trump always talks about nasty women. Oh, she's a nasty woman. These press secretaries that Trump gets, it's like they're made in a factory. They're always snarky and mean and smarmy. It's just, I just don't know where they all come from, but he manages to find them. But let me know what you think about all of this. Do you think Brian Tyler Cohen is right about this? That MAGA and the Republicans, they don't care anything about prices. This was never a real thing. They just want to get in there and deregulate. They're not going to do anything about prices or to help out the American people. One thing to me that Trump could have done with the wildfires in LA, there was lots of price gouging, and I'm sure it's still going on with rent. Rent was going up astronomically because people lost their homes or, the apartment that they were living in. And when they tried to go and rent another place, the prices were sky high. Now, there are laws in California that I believe they can only raise rent by something like 10% in a natural disaster like that. Trump could have come out, said on TV, this isn't going to happen while I'm president. Maybe, and he could have even thrown in, under the Biden administration, they would have allowed this, but the Trump administration is not going to. That would have been something that would have endeared him to a lot of Americans. They would have said, hey, he's looking out for people and trying to make sure that they don't get gouged on their rent. But did he do that? No, of course not. Let me know in the comments what you think about all of this. Make sure to give me a like and subscribe. This is Chris on Culture, and I will see you in the next video.